bless you. It's so good to be here, to be back with you. I should be giving these presentations from Mexico, but sadly, a virus that I'm still trying to find out what it is. I was affected on Thursday night when we were finishing the meeting of general superintendents, and this is the first time that I raise up from bed, only to be here with you. So may God give us the strength, may God help us, and we're gonna fight the virus in the name of Jesus. The topic of leadership is a topic that has been passionate for me always, and I want to share with you something today because when Milton calls me, he said, I want you to talk about the follow-up plan that comes after the mentoring plan that we did, and we put a form to it so we can have follow-up. And I said, I will do it, but I have some conditions. The first condition is that these topics that develop leadership are topics for voluntaries. So develop leaders is a voluntary process. We all have the responsibility to do it, but we cannot force anyone to develop their churches. Number two, my second condition, this is intentional. The development of the new generation of leaders is not going to be only if we see or we have an intuition that they will do it. It has to be intentional. Y al decir, and when we say that it is intentional, it has to be stages of follow-up. It has to be specific goals. And the third thing I said to him was, we're going to do it, but we're going to do it with those who are willing and those who have shown that the first stage of mentorship was not only listening, but they actually are mentoring someone. In our conversation, we started talking about how can we start the foundation for churches. And while we were talking with Milton, I mentioned him the plan that we had. In fact, it's still taking place, and it started in Eurasia in the year 2008, and that was the root of a plan, an intentional plan. And in Eurasia, we focused for 10 years, 3 priorities, because there are many birds, popcorns. There's a lot of things flying around throughout our ministries. So there's a temptation to show confetti. But we have decided in prayer that we were going to focus in 3 things for 10 years. And these 3 things are, first, the development of the local church. The development of the local church. An initiative that was called Church Development Initiative. So we were all going to train the pastors in the region so their churches could be missional churches. The second initiative was going to be called Initiative of District Development. All of the FSCs of the region were going to have the task of developing the district. And at last, the regional initiative to develop the new generation of leaders was going to be Leadership Development Initiative. So 3 initiatives to develop the region. Development of the church, of the district, and of the leaders. What I want to present to you, and I told Milton that it would be a pleasure to help him, that I want this presentation to not be taken as a general superintendent. Forget about a moment that I'm a general superintendent. Because I want to present it as someone that already graduated in 20 years, but with a specialty of leadership. And my specialty is in my PhD is Christian organizations. And we need to do this practical for the benefit of the Church of God. So let's see this as something, as a point of view, as a theoretical point of view, a practical point of view, and a scientific point of view. And that's how the leadership development should be from a Christian perspective. The second thing that I want to present to you is something that has been done, not something that we find in the books, but this model, we take it out from the books, but we apply it to the context of the Church of the Nazarene and the church and the context that we are living in. In this context, we apply a program that was developed. It was developed and it was implemented, and it continues giving results. We believe they're results bigger than we expect. In this hour, I'm going to show you the case study of what was done, so you can observe two things. First, that mentorship does work, and second, that if we are intentional and systematic here in Mesoamerica, you can have results even bigger because you have a better foundation than what we have started. So if you allow me, in this first hour, I'm going to present the case study. Brother Carlos Cordero, welcome to Mesoamerica. He's the new field strategy coordinator for Meso Central. He had the opportunity to show this model when we showed it in South America. He took part of it and he was able to implement it. It was implemented 100% in Eurasia, and it was implemented partially in South America 3 years ago. And I said partially because we can talk about what is needed to implement it in a full 100%. So without more words, let me show you and present you this study. The topic, how I've called it, is leadership development based on platforms and facilitated by mentors. This is not only a topic. This has become an article that is going to be presented to the journal organization. It's going to be presented to the magazine, the professional magazine of leadership, because this is a model that we generated, and it was tried for the first time in Eurasia, and it has a biblical foundation. So we develop leaders, and all through the presentation, you're going to find the word intentionality of language, intentionality of language. And you're going to find intentionality of terminology, of terms. So whoever is translating have a problem translating these terms, please stop me, because this model, it's not something that we just find from a book. Later on, I'm going to show you how it was designed, but it was designed with specific theology and with intentional basis. We believe that this model is to develop emerging leaders based on platform and facilitated by mentors. So let me unfold this. The first thing that we have, the issue, when we arrived to the region, we faced with a problem. The problem was that every time we had a meeting, and I don't know if this has happened to you in your district, brother or sister, if it has happened in the region, but we had a problem, an issue. That every time that we had to select members of the committee, representatives of an activity, representatives of a department, we had the problem that they were always showed up the same people. I have no problems with the same people. I'm thankful for the same of, but when I see that they were only 15 in a region of almost 40 districts, in a region of around there, around those times, there were around 75,000 members. How could we explain that we were only having 15 names? Let me tell you, brothers, that for me, it was a privilege to be 2 weeks ago in Trinidad and Tobago and to install the new superintendent that is here with us. Welcome, Brother Williams, Brother Ryan Williams. He's the person that we're looking for. A leader. So let's see this. There's a leader that has been successful and he retires. And he retires in a way, in a transition that it's easy. It was elected by the assembly, and Brother Williams might be one of the youngest superintendents, and he's elected. And that shows that there was a follow-up. There was a place where they can find seeds. And there's a place that where someone retires, there's no leader waiting to be picked up. In the departments, we have brothers that we love, and they're about to retire, but they haven't developed a person for the next level who's going to take their place. So we had that question. We had that question in Eurasia. How can we develop with intentionality emerging leaders? Those who we can pass the baton to them in a way that is natural, that feels natural. And how my friend said, he played golf and he says, there are two people in golf. There's one who plays with the ball, and there's the other one who carries the bag with the golf sticks. That's the caddy. There's the golfist and the caddy. And I have a friend that when he turned 60 years old, he took a young man and he said, okay, it's your turn to start hitting the golf ball. And I'm going to be your caddy. Because what a caddy does, a caddy can hit it so far, can hit it with strength, but he has the vision to see where he needs to hit the ball. The caddy is not under the reflector or the spotlight, but it's the golfist who is in the spotlight. The other issue that we found is that we need to recognize that we had some successes in the programs that we had in the region, like Leadership Eurasia, NYI, Leadership School. So we had some programs in the region that were successful, but they were hurting with some practical problems, theoretical problems. For example, they were very good, but they had no follow-up. They had very good, but they were very exclusive. They were very good, but they were only dedicating to perfect the ones that were already in the picture, to make them better. But in the other hand, we realized that the average age of our leaders was of 62 years old. So we had a leadership that was getting tired, and we had no second level. Sorry, there was someone talking about their fathers-in-law. So the next issue was, and you know what happens sometimes in church? There's a new person coming and they start a new program, and everything that was coming behind him, it gets lost. So we realized that we need to take the lessons of the previous programs. And in the previous programs, they have three problems. The first one was that there was no follow-up. And the typical problem of evangelism is that in the whole world, is that we are good at conferences, but we give no follow-up. You might have many participants, they have their participants diploma, but they don't have the application results. I was telling Milton that when we do conferences, we talk about two types of evaluation. The evaluation, the active evaluation, and the formative evaluation. The evaluation that adds is the one that we do when the conference is over, when the course is over. It's an evaluation that we say, I like it, we like it, it was fine, it was good. Was it good or was it not good? What did we like and what did we dislike? And for me, it's good only to improve the next time. But I care more about the formative evaluation. The formative evaluation is the one that is taken later, months later, or years later to see if the conference had the results, the practical results that we were expecting. Not if the participants increase their knowledge. So we learned that one of the problems has been that there's no follow-up. The second problem is that we were missing mentorship. We trained leaders and we left them swimming on their own. And the third problem was the reach of the program. The reach of the programs was not adding. So we needed two things in our favor. The first one was the need of multiplication. So from those 18 leaders of the picture with the same names as usual, the ones that we're showing in the General Assembly, the district superintendents, the committee, it was the same as the picture all the time. So we wanted to multiply them from 18 to 500 to 1,000. And at a certain point, I'm going to tell you why 1,000. And the second thing is that we have gained momentum. We had inertia as a result of two important events that had revealed to us that there was people, that there were leaders, but they only needed to be developed. The first one was the regional conference of Eurasia in the year 2007, a year previous, and the Youth Congress, the regional Youth Congress that was taking place in 2008. This was 2 months before this time I was talking. And I have a commercial here. I agreed to work this model with Milton because I've been visiting districts, I've heard reports, and I've heard pastors and superintendents give their reports. I've heard them, and they give the report that they have participated in impact mentorship. So we can take this inertia, use this inertia. So I'm just telling you a little bit of the background. And the background gave everyone, based on the background, this vision. And the words are very essential. They are key. God gave us the vision of develop 1,000 emerging leaders who will be discovered, trained, and trusted and released for leadership in the Eurasia region in the next 5 years. So we had 5 years. That means we had 5 years to develop 1,000 new emerging leaders. But there's a process, and the process is very clear. They were going to be discovered, trained, and trusted, and released. These are essential terms in this model. 1,000 leaders. Why 1,000 leaders? Well, it comes that in the Eurasia region, we had 34 districts by the time I arrived there. Those 34 districts, when you see the model forward, a little bit forward, the idea is that we had 3 interactions per district with this model that I'm going to present, where we were going to train an average of 30 to 40, between 30 and 40 emerging leaders per each district. If you multiply 40 times 34, those are 1,220. 1,220. So if we reached 100% of our success, that means that we were going to have 1,220 leaders that were going to be discovered, trained, and trusted and released. But we always know that we can't have 100% of success for any other reason that there is. So we decided if we reach a 90% of the success, and remember that the model of Jesus from 11 or 12, 10 keep going forward. They are always going to be someone that leaves the model. It could be for their own desire or for the desire of others. So here, with the vision, we establish the vision, the plan, and the goal. With this, you already have an idea of the presentation. 1,000 emerging leaders, and listen to the intentionality. They need to be discovered. Once they were discovered, they were going to be trained. Once they were trained, they were going to be entrusted. And once they were entrusted, they were going to be released. And how are we going to do this? To do this, we had 2 theses. They were important theses. And the main thesis was, and remember that I told you that this is a model based on platforms. So there are 3 elements, and these are not in the presentation, so you can put attention. This is not in the slides. It's part of the doctoral course of transformational leadership that they teach in the seminaries in Filipinas, sorry. So these 5 minutes are going to be an introduction. The introduction to the elements that are taking place in leadership. When we have a leadership, there are 3 elements, but in English and in Spanish, I call them the 3 P's. The first one is position. Position is the one that has a leader. A leader has a position that is been assigned to him. This position, they have been taking studies about this, and some of these leaders, 80% of leaders in the secular world that they're in leadership position, they aspire to a leadership position because the leadership position gives them power and it gives them money. In church, there's no one like this. In church, there's none like this. In church, Peter described like, don't do this to receive power. Don't do it to gain money, to enrich yourself. So why do we look for a position of leadership? 80% of the secular does it for what I just mentioned. 15% of the other leaders looks for it because it gives them reputation. And in the Christian environment, the percentage is a little bit higher because even though there's no money, there's no power, but what we look for is reputation. That's why we're filled with titles. Reverend, Doctor, Excellent, because position gives us reputation, gives us a name. And only 5% of those who aspire for a position of leadership does it or looks for it. And I say we do it because the position of leadership gives us a platform to bring change. A platform to bring change. So position of leadership, a leadership position, the only thing that gives us is a platform. Because I'm going to tell you that not all the positions gives you authority. And there are persons, people with authority, but without the position. And I'm going to give you an example of this. There was someone who had a position with no authority, Nehemiah. He had a lot of influence, but no authority. He was the cupbearer of the king. To have that position, so it's the king's cupbearer. So he had to try it first, and if it was poison, he would finish it. But if he was fine, he would give it to the king. It was an important position, but with zero authority, the king's cupbearer. But to the Lord Jesus, he was asked by the Pharisees, who gave you your authority, or what authority do you have? So the Pharisees asked him, what is your position to have all this authority? And he told them the authority of the Father. Position, beloved brothers, doesn't give me authority. And I'm going to tell you what gives you authority later on. So position only gives us the platform to lead. There are many leaders, and I'm here now because someone gave me a platform. I'm general superintendent because God gave me this platform. There are hundreds of leaders that are more trained. They are more capable and more anointed than me, but the platform was given to me. And I recognize this. Position only gives us a platform. The second P is the person who is the leader, the person of the leader. What do I do with this position? What do I do with this platform? What I do with it is what gives me authority. Authority is not given by position, but it's given by the character of the leader. Authority doesn't give it the position, but it's the person of the leader. We can have two leaders playing the same role with the same position, and I have seen it. Two pastors, two ministry presidents, two district superintendents, two regional directors, two general superintendents. You can see one next to the other in the same position. And what this one gives more authority than the other? What is this thing they do? And it's character. It's a development of the person as a leader. And the last one is the last P. Let's suppose that we have two leaders that they're in the same position and they have the same character. They're saint, they're holy. But what does it make that one is more effective than the other one? And it's the practices of leadership. So in other words, preparation. We can be here, all of us, leaders with the same platform, all of us holy. But what does make one more effective than the other is that one uses tools or practices that make them look more effective. Coming back to the presentation, I just wanted to give a brief introduction of 3 P's. Position gives us a platform, the person of leader gives us authority, and the practices give us efficiency. So coming back to the presentation, when we know this new concept, when we knew this new concept, we realized that there were some things that were happening in this species. The first thing is that the leaders need platforms, and the only ones that can give platforms to the new leaders are the actual leaders, the existing leaders. So we call them the gatekeepers. And it comes that the theory of leadership comes with 2 mentalities. The first one thinks that there's only one platform, there's only one chair for one leader. In this wrong mentality, if there's only one leader, there's only one platform, and there's only one leader. So what we do is that we hold to that chair so no one takes it from us. That's a Malthusian platform. It means that this platform, if I share it, I will miss my platform, or I will miss my position of king. But there's a kingdom platform that says that the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. For the first thing that we discover is that the leaders, the existing leaders, were the key to produce platforms. And the second thesis is that mentorship facilitates the development of leaders. Remember that I told you that the position gives us a platform, but what gives us authority is the person. So if we give platform without developing the character of the leader, then we're going to develop small dictators, just like Latin America. We take what we like from the platform, the power, but with zero character, with zero integrity. On the other hand, we can develop leaders and leaders and leaders and develop them in a special way. But if we don't give them space, do you remember that Chinese saying that says, don't give a man a fish, but teach them how to fish? I have seen many people that know how to fish. And I can dare to modify that Chinese saying. I would say, don't give a man a fish, teach them how to fish, and give him access to the lake where the fish are. In other words, not only you should not only train leaders, brothers and sisters, how many training conferences have we done? You should train them, but give them a platform. So this equation says existing leaders provides platform, provides mentorship, so these new leaders can develop as person inside their platforms. And this is the thesis. And I'm going to tell you how the program was. The concept was that the district leaders and their teams were the key, the actor, or the obstacles to develop leaders in their district through the following. And this is the same in the department. The department leaders, the leaders of the local church are key obstacles in facilitating the development of the church. NYI leaders, NMI leaders, existing leaders, and their team are the key actors or the key obstacles. So you that have the platform, you have the key of how many people can get into this platform. So the process was the following. We had, we identified the lay, and the whole concept is that it's based on identifying leaders and the establishment of mentorship. And these three things are key. First, identify the emerging leaders. Second, to develop the platforms, the environment. And the environment, when we designed this program, God gave me a vision, and it made me work with the regional team. And with this regional team, I gave them the vision and I let them work. And I said, this is the vision, this is the theory, you can go ahead. And they changed the name. In the European environment, they don't like the name platform for the social environment of Europe. And they said, no, we're going to call them to environment. And I said, okay, call them platform or call it environment. The concept is the same. The important thing is that the existing leaders identify new leaders, they develop their platform, and they should establish the mechanism of mentorship, of personal and individual mentorship. And we've been talking about mentorship for many times. And after doing this, we started the process. Leaders identify emerging leaders, 10 to 15, and they're prepared for a training event. This event of training, preparation for a focused training event, it's a 3 days event, and it has a specific curriculum. I remember that, well, depending on what the region decides to do, depending on Milton's availability, you need to recycle it. You can adapt it to your context. So what we did is that we saw the event, and in the context of the district, we didn't do it in a five-star hotel, but we do it in the context in which leaders are going to develop. So you need to do it in their own context. The district superintendent and the emerging leaders, the competent and experienced leaders were the ones that were there. They were assessoring, they were helping the emerging leaders. And mentor models were developed from this. For example, in the Netherlands, we used the coaching model. In the Netherlands, they had 8 coaches that were doing coaching to 14 emerging leaders. 8 to 14. Every 3 months, they change their coach so they can give coaching in specific areas of leadership development. Some in the management of time, some of management of relationship, and some in spiritual development. And that was the model of the Netherlands. In Portugal, they were taking couples, three leaders, three couples of leaders. They were mature leaders, and each couple was assigned 4 leaders. That gives a total of 12. And in India, because they use a lot of the guru model, 12 district leaders were assigned with a person. The important thing is that the district leaders can walk with the emerging leaders for a minimum of 2 years. And after the first phase is that the districts that were receiving the training in the place, they were giving, oh no, they had 7 prototypes, 7 conferences, 1 per field, to the voluntary district, the district that wanted to be voluntary, 1 per field, where the event was financed to them with the condition that they were going to be the host of the event, but 2 years later, they were compromised to organize their own event with local facilitators, with materials adapted to their context and facilitated by the regional team. So regional leadership team. So remember, this is voluntary. So the districts that wanted to serve as a voluntary to develop this model, everything was financed to them at the time of the event. Everything was provided to them with the condition that they were compromised to mentor from 10 to 15 emerging leaders, and then 2 years later, these leaders, with the participation of the existing leaders and the emerging leaders, these 20 people, they were going to organize and train the next group, so that the third group was going to be developed by them. The first one was financed by the region, the second one was financed by the district, and the third one was developed by themselves. We wanted to have 3 or 34 districts in an average of 12 to 15 leaders. So now I'm going to tell you about the content of the course. We used the biblical model of Matthew 10, committed disciples of Christ. That was the people that we were looking for. And we wanted to see the potential. The motto of Eurasia for those 10 years was to transform our world in Christ, like Christ, and for Christ. So everything was working in our mission, our vision of making disciples like Jesus. And the new leaders of the region had to carry these modular values. So we find leaders with potential to become agents of transformation in Christ, like Christ, and for Christ. We're not picking up the son of the teacher, the daughter of the superintendent. No. Committed Christians, people with good testimony, wisdom, and a spirit-filled character. Leaders that were willing to be mentored. And one of the things that we believe is that if you want to be a leader, you first need to be a servant. If you want to be a leader, you first need to be a servant. We selected the leaders, and then they participated in this event, focused on the person of the leader. And we had four training areas, four specific areas. The development of spiritual discipline was the first. It's essential. It's the spiritual development is essential. We worked on the spiritual formation of these leaders. The event of three leaders was programmed like this. The priority was the development of spiritual discipline. Next, two leadership essential lessons that were presented during the 3 days, and we give a continuity for the next 2 years. These lessons of leadership included specific practices of leadership that help them develop leadership skills. In our program, we found out, we discovered, and then we had a doctoral program that we talked about 12 practices of a transformational leader. I'm not going to present them because this is a content that you might receive later on. But we talked about the 12 characteristics in the Jesus model. And we were talking about the skills, how to develop a vision, how to be a follower leader, how to develop a good communication, how to make alliances, etc., etc. So they were specific practices. And then the next thing was the association of leaders. We had a separated training that it's focused only to mentors, to teach mentors how to do mentorship. In the event, we had facilitators from different, or trainers from various perspectives and experiences. All the district superintendents gave a training. We trained them to be trainers because all the leaders have something to teach as a leader. We also added the field strategy coordinators. They brought the area perspective, the field perspective. The region gave us the regional perspective, and then we brought experienced leaders from outside Eurasia that they were experts in the topic. But the key was always mentorship. So remember, the leaders provide the platform, but the mentors are the ones who develop the leaders. In the Bible, we can find, "These you have given to me." Jesus spent 3 years with the disciples, and the success was through the intentional mentorship of them. And we discovered that there are different plans. This is not a model that a glove that fits at all. The mentorship model has to be designed to the context, the reality, the capacity, and the need of the district. As I was saying, in India, they decided to do personal mentorship, individual mentorship. In Portugal, we had a collective mentorship. In Nepal, they used a combination of individual and collective. In Nepal, everyone was assigned a mentor, and then we had a group of 4 bigger mentors who were specialists. Or in the Netherlands, what they did there. There's not a specific model, but the important thing we need to consider is to have intentional mentorship. But follow-up is very important. We did the first event, but the second interaction, the second repetition of the event needed to exist, because if not, the whole model would die over there. And I've seen many initiatives in the Church of the Nazarene that start very good, And in other places, we say they started good, but it was just a small fire. I don't know how to call it in English or in French, but basically, it's a flash start. So first interaction, second interaction, it's locally owned and delivered and hosted. The result is to multiply leaders, districts, and churches. And the role of the regional leadership is the facilitation and follow-up. After 5 years, the results after 5 years, we had finished 62 events. They were completed. So they were 80% of the district already had their first and their second event. 80% of the districts. 740 emerging leaders were trained. And we had registered that many of them, they're assuming leadership roles. They are missionaries outside the region. And outside this group, we found our successors as regional directors. And many district superintendents came out, pastors, and we trained 250 mentors. We find the Eurasia region and now I've been visiting after 10 years leaving Eurasia, 10 years later, and 14 years later than we launched this model. Now we have more than 15 districts in the region that are part of this program. So in the District of Europe, where the best story is the United Kingdom, because when we came in the district assembly in 2004, the average was of 65 years old in the assembly. And now the district superintendent of the south of Great Britain, the United Kingdom, it's a young man of 42 years old, 42 years of age. Because the generation keeps supporting, the generation keeps working with them. But this young man, Mr. McCann, who participated in this program, Initiative of Leadership Development, ILD. You can say however you prefer. LDI, sorry, Leadership Development Initiative. This initiative is part of the district as any other activity. Brothers, in 5 years of activities, we decreased the average of the years in which the leaders had. This platform comes specific to when it comes to say harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. All of the leaders that were here, they retired, and they retired in good terms, and they gave their church to a new generation. And in 5 years, we decreased the average of the age of the region, not because we took them out, but because we brought a new step, leaders to a new step. The leaders of 40 years, around 40 years. The other thing is that the church multiplied. How can we develop platforms? The thing is that if there's only one chair, if we use this wrong Malthusian theory, then you won't be able to share your chair. But what happens here? There are so many leaders. in Eurasia. We had around 70,000 members when we arrived in 2004. And thanks to this initiative and the other two initiatives that we used to the glory of God, when we left Eurasia in 2013, we had 5,000 organized churches, and it had multiplied to 250,000 members. Everything because we invested in the new generation of Eurasia. I know that you might have questions, and I'm going to leave it until here. And I open the space for those who want to make questions. We're going to make a small break because after this, we're going to talk about practical things. Milton, are you here? So what do we do? This is the first stage, and I leave it to you. I don't know if you need to take a water break so I don't get dizzy. We're going to have 15 minutes of break, and then we're going to come back. Please, you can go ahead and drink a coffee. You can stretch, and in 15 minutes, we're going to be back here at 9:20 to continue with the second phase on how we can put into practice all of these excellent things that the doctor is sharing with us. In 15 minutes, we see ourselves at 9:20 or 10:20 in Mexico. It's only 15 minutes. You can turn off your camera and put your microphone in silent. Don't leave the meeting. Just turn off your camera. We're gonna put some music so you don't fall asleep. Welcome, Augusto. It's a pleasure to greet you. Carlos de la Cruz, welcome. Brother Carlos Cordero, welcome. Blessings to everyone. Thank you. Greetings, Carlos. Thank you, Brother Milton. I greet you, my brother Carlos Cordero. For the formation of new leaders. I think that we're going in the right way, and I hope that this regional initiative can give you a result with the help and accompaniment. But Dr. Crocker over here is talking not as a general superintendent, but a leader that is helping us, that is walking with us in the development of our districts and the development of the leaders that we need. So one more time, welcome. And please remember that we're going to have a time for questions. Doctor. So this is time for some questions, for any ideas that you would like to ask. So if you have any questions, this is time. You can raise your hand to tell us if you have any questions. For example, I'm raising my hand, and you can do it in the same way if you want to ask something. So we're gonna have 5 hands.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Crocker. Good morning. I have 2 questions. Is this plan that you're presenting, is this a document as well? Is there a document that districts can look at to just get an idea of what it looks like in people? And secondly, is this something that you spearheaded when you were the regional director, or did you delegate this to another leader on the region, or did you were you the point person in planning this?
Very good questions. The first question, the materials were developed, the whole proposal, everything is documented. This is only the presentation. When we did the evaluation, we did this presentation for to give it to the academic um, area, but everything is designed. Everything is designed already in paper. And the second question, I'm gonna answer it. It looked like this. I believe that all leader has to have the vision, but some of the problems that we have in leadership, that we have visionary leaders, but they don't know how to execute their vision. Then there are some leaders that are more of management. They are good managers. They know how to manage, but they don't have a vision. And these are two problems in leadership. Dr. Banks, the previous president of the Monroe University, he writes a book called Managing Tension. And I believe that there's a big difference of implementators without a vision. And that's what we call managers. And there are many visionaries without implementation, and those we call dreamers. But an effective leader is a leader that has a vision given by God, and then that vision needs to be, Habakkuk 2:2 says, this is what the Lord says, write the vision, put it in tables, on tablets, on rock, and repeat it. And if it doesn't come, don't worry. One day you'll see the vision. So the leader has to start with the vision of God. Vision coming from God, given to men and women in the context that we are. But that vision has to have two elements. One element is the element of sharing the vision, and the other element is to try it, try the vision. So in Eurasia, when we saw this happened in 2008, and I arrived there in 2004. We spent 2 years making an evaluation of service. A leader cannot give the luxury, cannot take the luxury of just evaluating. There's a model that is called the evaluation model through service. So as we serve, we evaluate. And this is good for new leaders when we arrive. As we serve, we evaluate. And in 2005, I came back from General Assembly and I had a meeting to evaluate what were the priority needs, the prioritial needs of the region. That's where we realized that the needs that were a priority were those three: development of leaders, development of churches, and development of districts. So I formed a team that was the team that the church gave me. That was the regional leadership team. All of us have teams that we work with, and those teams are our filters. And God gave Nehemiah the vision to restore the walls of Jerusalem. But he decided and this is not gonna happen if there's no empowerment. If we don't empower those who want to bring the vision. So Nehemiah brought the key leaders and showed them the situation, and they said, "Oh, let's build the wall." So we met with the team, and three initiatives come. The initiative to develop leaders, to develop churches, and to develop the district. It comes that my academic specialization is based in the Christ model. So when they told me this, I changed my hat. So I became a facilitator. And as a facilitator, I was facilitating strategically to discover the need. And that's when the need of a leader comes. Oh, sorry, where the need of the initiative of leadership development comes. And there I presented this academic theoretical model, a model that I knew that worked, but I had to try it out. So I give the theory, I make the theory, and I give the regional leaders, the team of the regional leaders that was confirmed by the coordinator of theological, two superintendents, district superintendents, two lays, two pastors, and two representatives of the NYI. This team meets up to process the concept, and then they design it. And my role was to be the one holding the flag. A leader that won't fight the battle with his soldiers is not a leader. So I was compromised to teach 7 pilot projects, 7 of the 32 that were going to be taking place. Sorry, 7 from 70 something. I was the one participating directly. I was one of the facilitators. I was the expert that arrived with them, with the team. We had a team of 4 people, and I was there in 7. I took place of manage the project. The leaders reported to me. I don't know if that answers your question. Thank you. Is there any other question? Good morning, Dr. Crocker. Brother Chavez. Brother, is this mentorship going to be given to Central America? Is it going to be available to be part as a leader and a pastor? Well, I'm presenting this as a case study to illustrate 2 things to you. The first thing is that mentorship does work, but it needs to be intentionally and systematically. In other words, you that were participating in the mentorship programs, and you might ask, how does it work? It works. There are 2 ways to make it work. The first way is that it's randomly. You take the course, you take a perspective, but you will never know if it worked. This is to illustrate how to maximize a program like Impact Mentorship in the region, so that any initiative that you have, you can make it intentional and you can make it systematic. Sometimes we do mentorship as someone that says, someone that arrives the bus and they ask him, where do you go? And he says, I don't know. I like the bus. It's free. And we get the bus. And when we leave the bus, we might say, oh, we're lost, or oh, I don't know if I got to my destiny. Because only one of 100 people like this reach their destiny because you do it in a random way. But when we're working about church and when we're talking about intentionality in the development of districts, missions, and ministries, we will be able to reach our destiny. I I'm I'm not offering this. I told me I'm not offering products because I have no extra time. I need more time. But what I'm saying is this is a model that was made. It can work in Mesoamerica, but it needs some parameters to make it work. One of them is that the gatekeepers are not holding the chair. If the gatekeepers don't hold this model for themselves, it's going to work. We can do it with the ones that want to do it. This is not going to be imposed to anyone. I'm not imposing this as a general superintendent. This is just a resource of our church. Gabriel. Morning, Dr. Crocker from Mexico. Brothers, because what you're sharing, it has already some time, and impact mentorship is taking place in different levels. We're realizing some difficulties, and I would like you to share from your experience, but basically the processes of follow-up, of deep relationship, of mentor and mentee have been the key elements that we haven't been able to connect. And now that you have already seen it and you're in another area of leadership, the questions are two. What are the needs to develop basic, deep relationships between mentor and mentees? And now the second question is, now that you're in the other area, that it's not that one, if you did this project again, what would be the things that you would change? Because it could help me prevent things that we're trying to implement here in Mesoamerica. Good question. And Paul says, always be prepared to answer it. I'm going to start with the first question. The question is how to be an effective mentor, right? And there are 5 requirements so you can find effectiveness in the relationship of mentor and mentee. The first one is to make everything out of love. The second one, do it to encourage. Be an encourager. The third one is that you need to be open. Mentorship needs to be open. Fourth is that you need to check your motives. Why are you doing it? And fifth, relax. If you're a mentor, you don't have your effectiveness, your efficiency, your result is not going to be measured in the result of the life of those who you're mentoring. You're doing what you're doing because God put a person in your way. And there are 3 questions that I say that every mentor should ask. These 3 questions. And these 3 questions are made every time that they meet up with someone that they're mentoring. I am personally mentoring for 20 years. I've been mentoring for 20 years, and there are always 6 people. I've only had time for 6 people to mentor. And there are some people in this group that I'm mentoring, and you know that every time that I have time, or every time that my mentee has time, I'm always willing. If someone calls me, my mentees, I always make the time to answer. And I also I always make these three questions, and it's related to 2 Kings 18. Three questions. The first one is, how are you? Always, how are you? That's the first question, always. How are you? The second one, second question, how's your family? How's your family? And the third question, how's your ministry? I have I have one person that was living with me. Now he's the president of a university and a seminary, and I'm super happy that he's doing a better work than I did. He exceeded what I was doing. And I did those three questions to him all the time. Because when you ask these three questions, you already have 1 hour of conversation. And starting from there, the person open up, and then he presents you all their motives. So this is a checklist of the ideal mentor. This is what you asked, Gabriel. An ideal mentor has to be honest with you. So if I am a pupil or a student, the mentor has to do this for me. It has to be a model for me. It has to be deeply committed to me, open and transparent, a teacher, and someone who believes in my potential. If someone is honest with me, and for those who I've been their mentor, I don't sweet, I don't give the pills with sugar. I give them as it is. That I say things with transparency. I try to be enough transparent and open, and they know that I take their backs because I believe in them. The list goes on. An ideal mentor is one who can help you define your dream and plan to turn your dream into a reality. The ideal mentor is successful in the eyes of the student. He's open to listen from the mentee and as well as teach him. This is very important because a mentor is not duplicating himself. A mentor is helping a leader to develop their own potential. And it's very important. Some mentors want to duplicate themselves, to do exactly what they did. Does this answer your question? Yes, brother. And the other one is when you turn back to where you were a few years ago. The first lesson that I learned, that success happened in the intentionality and the systematic. No, sorry, intentionality and follow-up. The second part of the success was how the leadership was empowered or was, no, how the leadership grabbed or was hold of this concept. They hold this concept. Oh, I'm receiving a call. I would need to leave for some minutes. But there are some things that didn't happen. And let me tell you what I saw. If I had to do this again, one of the things that I would do, I would focus it a little bit more. let me confess that when I learned this, I just, I many of you might know that the Lord in 2012, the Lord told me clearly, 10 years ago, that my time in Eurasia was over. I was in Guatemala in August of 2012 when the Lord talked to my wife and I. So we had to do the transition to move to that new stage of our life. And the new stage of our life was to develop this model that we had in a global way. So he gave us a global training center for the new generation. I met up in Indianapolis on 26th of June 2013. I met with the team who was going to help me implement this in a global way. And I know because we already knew who that worked, it was necessary, and we had to focus full time on it. 4 times later, God calls me to be the superintendent, general superintendent, and here I am. So the lesson is this one. The general superintendent, Don Owen, said, sustainability of our ministry is not measured in the number of churches that we plant or the numbers of churches that we or the number of leaders that we multiply. There are some leaders that when they retire, they say, this is what I did. And they have a lot of diplomas behind. And there are others who, when they retired, he has 12 lives that are going to be in charge to multiply what he did. There are at least 5 districts that we invested a lot of powder, a lot of energy there, but the superintendents didn't want to change. The leaders of the ministries in those districts didn't want to change. They were happy with his little kingdoms. So there's no purpose in training that there. We arrived one time to a place. It was a very hot place and we were there for 3 days. And the leader of that district, he grabbed 15 people, random people, only because the general superintendent was coming. He put them into the meeting, and they were so lost. They were very lost. And 2 years later, there was nothing. So the lesson over there is to not force. If they don't want it, they won't want it. It's not, the kingdom of God doesn't need of them. The kingdom of God gives us the privilege to be used. Okay. Valen Smith, you have a question.
Greetings. My question, Doc, is regarding the role of spouses and family in this transition that you have presented to us. I find it rather crucial for spouses and family to be on board. Nothing has been said about that as yet. And I'm saying as yet, I have not come to the end of the presentation. But through your wise eyes and years of experience, what's the role? What's the responsibility? Where's the balance for spouses, whether it be fiance, whether it be wife, husband, children, I guess at a certain age? That's my question.
if God has given you a partner, wife or husband, leadership is a family project. And in another workshop that I was able to give in South America that was for pastoral families, we talked about how to develop the family in a way that they complement each other and they don't compete. Until there, I'm gonna leave it. Because that training was very extensive. But we have to be careful that being one doesn't mean co-leaders. There's a big difference in between complementing and being co-leaders. Some of us we think that the leader and if the leader is superintendent, the wife is also superintendent. She might have a different calling to be a missionary, a teacher. And it says, no, give a moment. I am not a pastor. I'm not a superintendent. You know, you can tell Sister Raquel if she wants another pastor. But if the sister has a pastoral calling and she's a pastor, that's good. But she's not co-pastor if you are a pastor. There's also not co-district superintendent or co-general superintendent. She is Donnie's help. She is ideal help. The wife or husband were only collaborators of the kingdom, but understanding the function for what God has called us. There are elements where there are times where my wife has things, events, and I go out with her. There was a moment where she was the secretary of the district, and I was the vice president of evangelical agencies, and I went to the ministry retreats, and she was the one that was in charge, and I was just there listening to her because she was the district secretary. I packed the books, I packed the bags, and she was the one that had her function, her role. So leadership, it's a family project, but the position, the platform, it's not shared. The platform is given to the leader. If it's woman, it's woman. If it's men, it's men. But the platform is platform. Whoever God gives it to. But there's no co-leader unless God names it like this. But God's going to clarify that. Brother Marco, you have 10 minutes. Just to clarify, it caught my attention that you mentioned many times the need to put this in our context. For example, this was used in Eurasia and partially in South America. And then you said that this is a model. You said this doesn't have to be the same model. For example, in this place. So my question is if you can explain if this model is negotiable. What is the non-negotiable things? What are the things that you cannot change? If we can make some variations, then what is the essential in this model? This is a case studies. This is not a commercial where I'm selling this model. This is just a case study. And what we tried is two things. The thesis was tried out, was proven. And the thesis is this, that to develop leaders in the context of the Church of the Nazarene, you need two things. You need platforms, and this means giving spaces, and you need mentorship to develop it. Why? Because the platform is the one that gives the person the opportunity to be developed. And mentorship gives the emerging leaders the opportunity to develop their person. Because remember that the position only gives us a platform, but it doesn't give us authority. And what gives us authority? The person of the leader. And how do we develop the person of the leader? My thesis is, and this thesis can also be challenged. I'm not coming here to sell something. I'm coming here to show you a thesis that was proven for 5 years, and that 10 years later, that thesis is still valid. And the thesis is that to develop leaders, we need to give them a space. We need to give them this space to the leaders, and we need to mentor them so they can, we need to teach them, train them, walk along them so they can look for what's the leader that Jesus has in them. So in this thesis, the only thing that we can prove, I think that the only thing that we can prove here is my thesis. This is the thesis. We presented the typical model with the existing numbers. So what I believe in this moment, if they tell me, if I was the person in charge of the leadership, I would say, these are the non-negotiable things, or the 2 principles. I have other presentations available. There are 4 presentations, and we're going to send them to you. One is the elements of leadership development, because we have to develop 3 areas for the person of the leader. We first have to develop the spiritual development. The second one, the person of the leader. And the third one, the practices, the strategic part of the leader. So that presentation is there and is going to be sent by the brother. There are other presentations when we make a difference between evangelism, discipleship, and mentorship. Evangelism that is one-to-one is different than discipleship, and the discipleship is different than mentorship. Mentorship is specifically designed to help the people so they can develop the potential that God has put in them, so that they can develop the potential of a leader. All of this is going to be for free. The region is going to send this to you. I'm going to send it to the region, and they're going to send it to you. What do we do after here? What comes later? And that comes, that is your, it's in you. As I said, I repeat it again. We're not coming here to sell a product. I don't have the time to sell a product, but if you're interested in this, we're willing to look for those spaces to help you. The reason is this: my role as general superintendent requires me to do this. The general superintendent, in fact, doesn't have time to do this, but we have to do it. We have to do it because I feel like we're missing only a few years as leaders. And this generation needs to take the wheels of the church. Don't be afraid. I remember when I was elected as a general superintendent, and they said, well, this guy is a postmodern. He's going to give away to the church. And let me tell you this, I'm jealous for the church. I have a big jealousy for the church, but it's not mine, it's of Christ. And he's going to keep building it. And it's the new generation going to take the church. I am not afraid of what they'll do, because God said, I will edify the church, and even the doors of hell won't prevail against it. I don't have to be taking care of it. I'm not an overprotector of the church, but my Christ is stronger than anyone together. So no worries, brothers, of trusting our church to the next generation. Don't be afraid. You won't miss your job either. If you develop the next generation, you won't miss your job because the harvest is plenty and the workers are few. And some people say, oh, this general came and we need to hold from our chair. And let me tell you this, if you're old, you need to develop the new generation. I'm not coming here to take out the old people. I'm coming here to help the old people develop the new generation. Because one day, someone gave me a platform. Therefore, I need to give the platform to someone else, to the glory of God, for the expansion of his kingdom. So we're missing only 2 minutes. And let me tell you, Brother Milton, I'm in the disposition, but the only thing that I suggest is don't work with something that comes from up. This is a big group. This is a big group. We have 222 people. If this group that is here, take note of who is here, have a meeting, and discuss what are we going to do with all this and who will be involved. The who, what, and why. And in the moment, when you realize what is the thing that you have in your hands, what is in your capacity, you put it into place. And may the peace of God be in your heart and in your mind. Thank you, Dr. Crocker. It's always a blessing to listen to you. You always give us a challenge, and what you have generated this morning is what we were expecting in relation to invest our lives in the new generations. Are you willing to invest your time in the next generations? This means time. This means that we all going to work together. And as the brother said very properly, taking this from the bottom upwards so we can prepare our leaders and our pastor throughout the whole region. I give thanks to God because we have our director of North Central, Reverend Carlos Cordero, and also field coordinator of Meso Central, Carlos de la Cruz. It's very important to hear if these two people are willing to invest of their time and their platform so we can prepare the leaders of the new generation. And I would love to listen to them. I'm going to leave. I need to call my doctor. Let's give him a round of applause, all of us. Thank you, doctor. May God bless you and that you can recover. Carlos de la Cruz, tell us more about it so we can finish this time, so our brothers can listen to you. Excellent, excellent. Good morning to everyone. I think that this has been an excellent time. It's always a blessing to listen to Dr. Crocker. I was able to spend the last weekend in Puerto Rico and I learned so much in this time. And with relation to invest our time, it's something that we need to take advantage. And as Dr. Crocker said, let's not only expose this, but let's multiply this so we can work in the formation of the leaders. I believe that there's a good time on when it comes to what our area prefers. They want to join the preparation of the new generation. And I think that that's about what it's about, the legacy that we're gonna leave to the next generation. So I'm willing 100% to continue working. Hugs to everyone. It's so good to be with you in Meso Central. Brother Carlos Cordero. Hello, Brother Milton. Dear participants, I greet you in the name of North Central. I'm from Venezuela, preparing my bags to move to Meso. And well, I give faith that it is worth it to participate in this initiative as part of South America. Here in the Andean district, we have seen the positive results of this process of mentoring. So it's totally worth it. And as Dr. Crocker said, and Brother Carlos reaffirmed, it's necessary to prepare the next generation. And very especially, I understand that it's part of the process. I celebrate that as part of our transition, where we're talking about the ages. And Dr. Crocker said that there was an average of 62 years of age when the project started. And when it was ending, the age was 42, the average. And here in Venezuela, I see that there's a transition here where the age of the superintendent, district superintendent, is coming down. So in North Central, we're willing to spend our energy, our time to do this as well. I joined to this effort. Thank you, Milton, for facilitating this whole tool that is going to be of a great blessing. Thank you, Carlos. We're waiting for you, praying for you so that God allow you to come safely to our country, to be a blessing. Gerson already has the schedule. Please write down this in your planner, in your agenda, in your organizer, so you can be in the next training, in the next equipping session that we're gonna have 2 more in this year. This is going to be developed, this is gonna help us develop leaders. So in 2023, we can change the history. As you can see in your screen, you can write down when's the next equipping session of the next month. 6th of August. August the 6th, please write it down in your agenda. It's going to be at 8 a.m. in Central America time and 10 in the English field time. And we'll have 1 more equipping session. Let me give you the date of when it's going to be so you can save it. December the 10th. December the 10th is going to be the last one, where we're going to be talking on the last topic of mentorship from now, talking of how it's going to be the training and the development of leaders and mentors based on the platform that Dr. Crocker has given to us, and join the whole regional ministry with the help of Dr. Carlos Sainz. Remember that today is Saturday, May 28th. Today is the day of the global evangelism, and I'm ready. And as soon as I finish, I'm going to go to the street. I'm in a city to the north of Guatemala. I'm in San Pedro Parcha, and I'm going to go out with a group of leaders to evangelize and share the hope in Christ. So our planters are invited to evangelize. Today we're going to have a lot of joy. A lot of parts in the world have started evangelizing, and as Church of the Nazarene, we want to help touch the lives of people that are looking for the hope of Jesus. I send you a big hug to everyone. All of you are going to receive this presentation, and we'll see each other on August the 6th.